What's going on, guys? How's it going?
Hello, hello.
Here we are again.
Thanks for taking last week's without me.
Yeah, it was a pleasure.
No problem. Hey, Leo. Do you have a Bob Marley painting in the back or something? Oh, there it is. I guess it's.
It's blurred out, but if I wave
Yeah,
enough,
yeah. If you move your head, it kind of gets unblurred. Yeah.
Hey.
Oh, nice. All right. Yeah. So you were on vacation last week, eh?
Yeah, didn't have amazing internet and first vacation in a while, so I was very appreciative of you guys stepping in and doing it without me while I was lying in the sun and sipping on pomadas.
Oh, nice. Well, there wasn't too much news last week. Not too much. I think this week we have a couple of more interesting points to discuss.
It was interesting, but we somehow did not got the right recognition for the stuff we talk about last
I
week.
think I think it was an interesting one last week, and I think for me it raised the point that we need to be more proactive at I guess ourselves, maybe reaching out to the Hivemapper team and asking for like one-on-one answers to the questions, and then we can give an update on the next show. I know that we're live and I'm talking out loud right here, but I think it would be great to sort of give an update the week after on what we discussed before.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we haven't had much information on those points, right, regarding privacy. I think the only response I saw somewhere is that Hivemapper doesn't really want to discuss these type of things in public. At least that's from what I understood the comment that was made. But I think it's still. I have it here in my list as kind of pending information. That and the information on the tokenomics is probably coming in October, as they mentioned. But yeah, the info on these points.
Yeah, I think on that point, Maya, it's one thing to have a load of random people kind of putting up random questions haphazardly in the Discord. If we maybe created a bullet point list of like the 2 to 3 biggest questions we have, and then like one of us can one-on-one ping the Hivemapper team, not in an open like public space on the Discord, maybe that's a better way to do it, because I can kind of see where the Hivemapper team's coming from if they just get bombarded with random questions from but some of them do, some of them don't make sense.
Yeah. On that note.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying that you sent a list this afternoon, Mladen, a list with taking pictures privately and commercially. That's quite an interesting list. I don't know if you've guys seen it, Leo, as well, but there's basically 3 columns that says, okay, can you take a picture? Yes or no. Can you publish it? Yes or no. And can you then commercially exploit it? And when I mean take a picture, I mean this is a picture of a person, and it's pretty interesting that if you look at the commercial column, we should probably include this in the text box once this episode comes out. But it's pretty interesting that in most countries at least, they all have okay, do you need a license to publish it commercially? Practically all have yes. Only a couple, like Hong Kong, actually Holland has no. That's also pretty interesting. But most of the other countries all require some sort of commercial license. Not all countries are in here, by the way.
Is that relevant though? Is it relevant if the Wikipedia page is for taking a picture of identifiable people, as in like someone's face? Because in Hivemapper's case, obviously they're blurring out faces. It's very different taking a picture of a scenery or a building rather than someone's face. So I'm wondering if that table is actually relevant to us.
True, good point. Probably to a certain degree, right? So although, like we discussed in Germany last week, that in Germany, for example, you can ask the company that's mapping to blur out your house, for example, right? And right now residential addresses are not blurred out. So yes, it's a good point. Probably not all of these transfer one-to-one to when you blur out faces and license plates, but it still gives you an idea that, okay, even though taking images on a for a personal level in most countries is acceptable, but then if you want to commercially exploit it, then in most you need some sort of license.
And then there is also when you go down in that list and you look at every country on its own, you will see that every country has a different context about what they think about persons being in a picture. So that's really different for each country. Some are very strict. So where there is a person in a picture, you are not allowed to do anything. But a lot of other countries say, okay, sure, you can do that, but then you need some kind of consent, which is virtually impossible to give, to ask every single person you mapped for a consent, or you need some kind of wide range license to be able to do that. Basically, what you're asking is the government of that country to trust you that you are going to do the right thing with those pictures. So I think that's what it is. What's strange to me personally is when people ask Hivemapper last week about, hey, guys, how are you standing in this privacy thing and commercially mapping? If I was Hivemapper and I was 100% sure that I'm doing the right thing, I would proudly say, guys, we are legitimate. We comply to every single country where we sold our cameras. That's what I would say as a company. It's something to be proud of, right?
Yeah, I think it's pretty certain that they're not, right? And they probably don't want to say publicly that they are not, because, well, that's breaking the law. Then you're admitting it publicly. But at least there should have been some communication in a sense from, okay, yes, we need to look into more countries, right? Of course, we know it's always work in progress. These things take time, right? If you want to apply to a commercial license, it could take years. So yeah, at least there should be some communication on there, because as we discussed as well, is okay if you get a fine for mapping with a dash cam, right? So who's like what kind of room is there to, for example, sue Hivemapper? Because not only European member states can sue a company, but also individuals can sue a company as well. So what is the risk for fines? What is the risk for suing Hivemapper into oblivion, which is possible? So all of those things, there needs to be more transparency on that. Same on the tokenomics as well. There needs to be more transparency on these points. And yeah, maybe they don't have customers right now, right? So it's probably not very high on the priority list, but I would say it's even more important than tokenomics.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing should actually be the first thing they have in place, because why I'm dealing with this stuff on almost on daily basis as being in the healthcare sector, dealing with medical data. Basically, you need to have sorted out every time when it comes to some kind of data, you need to have sorted it out before you actually start doing it. Because what's going to happen is, first of all, I'm not really afraid about lawsuits, because the first thing that happens in Europe is they will get a warning. but the warning will be of a kind, okay, guys, from now you need to comply. This is your first warning. Oh, and don't forget to delete everything you have. And we are going to come back and check. So basically, what could happen is they're going to lose all the 50 million kilometers of data. I mean, at least the stuff that's taken in Europe. And that's a bad thing.
Option three is that, because I remember right back at the beginning during, or at the Fleets event that I went to in San Fran, I think I overheard a conversation of Ariel saying that he spent like $1 million, if not millions of dollars on legal advice in Germany and other European countries. And my instinct says, like, if the advice had come back, look, you can't do this, it's not worth the risk. Would it be that difficult to say, okay, well, maybe we're starting off in the US only where we know the legislation, blah, blah, blah. Like, there must have been some informed decision going on there. I'm not saying that they're completely compliant right now. I'm also not saying that, do we know 100% that they're not, and they have some sort of solution in place and just aren't being transparent about it, because a lot of it we don't know.
Well, from what I understand is they are trying to comply in the sense that individual people can have a dash cam. I think that's what they're after. From the communication we've had from Hivemapper, that's mostly the direction they have taken. But that is different than being compliant with doing commercial style mapping. 100%. Of course, there are some countries, like in China, like you cannot do either, where there are people mapping right now, which is completely illegal in both ways. And then you have countries where you can use a dash cam for private use cases. In many European countries, right, as long as you mask license plates and faces, but then you do need a license to be able to explore that imagery commercially, right? So these are two different kind of legal points. And right now, we only see information into, okay, does this country allow mapping with a dash cam for personal use? Okay, they do, we're fine. But that's, as we've discussed, that's not really.
I think they're playing a little bit of a game on that, and in the sense of, okay, if in a country it's allowed to use a dash cam, and that thing looks like a dash cam, nobody will actually care. So it will stay a little bit incognito till they maybe have a real license of stuff like that. I mean, what's the chance that somebody looks at that thing and say, okay, this is not a dash cam, this is a mapping device?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. They will have a bit of time to explore it before some customer, because it will probably be the customers as well that will ask them, hey, okay, show me the licenses that you have for mapping in these countries, right? Because as a customer, you don't want to burn your hands on data that wasn't acquired correctly. So I think, we are kind of discussing these things ahead of time. I don't think it's, just to give them a bit of credit, I don't think that right now it's a huge problem. But I do think, as Mladen mentioned, that it's definitely a very important point, and it will be increasingly important as we kind of progress with the mapping space, as Hivemapper gets more of a name, as more customers come on board. There will be kind of a time that all of this stuff has to be cleared and legally accepted before we can kind of say, okay, it's safe to map in this specific country.
Yeah. Let's see how it goes, right?
All right. Yeah, we have a couple of discussion points for this week, and it's kind of following the news that we've had last week and the beginning of this week. So one of the points is kind of discussed the tokenomics of the Hivemapper bursts. Right, we've had a bit of a discussion on this and this interesting point. So the bursts, for those that don't understand, is is if a customer wants to map a specific area or region, they can kind of pay more for the dashcam mappers to map in that area. From what I understand, it's not actually paying for the data. You are just paying some amount of money as an incentive to map a specific area, right? So this week, Hivemapper announced that they'll have the total pot of the burst rewards will be 200,000 honey. So if you drive in a specific burst, for example, your earnings will be split with whatever other driver does that burst as well. So if you see, for example, 50 honey in your app, so you have to open your Hivemapper app, go into the map section, and then you'll see all of the bursts in your area, if there are any. And that amount, if you are the only one that maps that burst, you will get the full amount. If you're not the only one, it will be kind of divided with a different mapper. Now, the interesting point that someone pointed out on Discord regarding the tokenomics is that, okay, Hivemapper says that these bursts are paid by customers, right? Probably in fiat, in dollars, I would say. Yet, if you look at the Hivemapper Explorer and the blockchain, we see that most of these tokens come either from a Hivemapper wallet account, or they are actually minted. So minted meaning in the sense that these tokens didn't exist yet, and they are minted honey tokens. Now that kind of begs the question, okay, these tokens, they are either minted or taken from the Hivemapper stash, so from the Hivemapper wallets. Okay, but the customer pays for these honey or for these bursts. So where is the fiat amount that they pay? In which sense do the mappers see this fiat payment back, right? So okay, so you get tokens that are basically created out of thin air. The customer pays in dollars, but are then the mappers actually rewarded for the extra cash that the customers put forward to increase the speed of mapping in specific areas?
So the real question is the fiat that the customer pays, how is that driving the token price up? Is that a more or less way of
not driving the token price up? How does the mapper profit from it? Because these bursts are more expensive than your normal mapping per kilometer, so they are paying more to map it faster, and they spending more dollars. But okay, how do the mappers actually profit from this, from these dollars, right? Because
yeah, from what we have seen right now, there is nothing coming back to the market. At least some people did some simple searches, and there is nothing being bought back so far. We cannot be, of course, 100% sure, but it looks like nothing is coming back. Then again, it's a commercial company. They there is nothing that says that they must do that, return tokens to the market. But we all know where it will go if we don't get at least 40% of the tokens coming back to the market. So dividing the same way the tokens are divided in the whole 10 billion pot. I would expect them to give at least 40% back to the community.
But they're two kind of different things though, because obviously there's a 10 billion max honey supply, 20% to investors, 20% to employees, 15%, blah, blah, blah. 40%, which is the figure you're quoting, goes to the community, right? So there's 4 billion honey tokens that are going out to the community. Just clarify one thing, Meije, you were saying, like, how do the mappers benefit from the burst? Well, the person who gets the burst, obviously they're getting more tokens. But I think the real question is, which we're probably speaking about the same thing, I'm just saying it in a slightly different way. How does the dollars that the customer pays, how is that benefiting everybody in the world who is mapping and
exactly
who holds the honey token?
Yeah.
AKA, how does the dollar drive the price of the token
Yeah.
up?
Well, the only way that they can support this is by actually acquiring tokens on the market from these customers. So for example, a customer puts in $20 to map a specific region, right? So they pay Hivemapper in fiat, they don't pay in tokens. Okay, then Hivemapper needs in that area. So right now, when they are just minting tokens, right, they are kind of giving away air that isn't worth anything to the mappers, while Hivemapper Inc. keeps all the fiat. Well, what should happen is that something that I actually talked to Mike from Geonet about, is they actually do kind of a similar thing with their customers, but they buy their tokens from the market. So basically, if a customer comes in and say, here, you have $500, for example, I want to map these regions, Hivemapper goes, buys these tokens from the market, takes these tokens, and then gives those out to mappers that actually map these areas. That way, you have a direct kind of line that goes from fiat from the customer to fiat from Hivemapper to fiat from the mapper itself, right? So this is not very different than the other tokenomics topics that we've discussed, but it's pretty interesting because the customer pays more for these things, but not a single dollar that actually comes from the customer makes its way into the mapping ecosystem.
As far as we know, and we won't know for sure until the tokenomics.
Well, no, well,
we expect, right?
Well, we are pretty clear, because if you look at all of the transactions that come from the that are minted and go out as bursts, they if you follow the blockchain, they are all minted coins. So
is that minted going straight into the driver's pocket, or is that minted?
Yes, correct,
okay.
correct. So it's minted and then it goes straight into the driver's pocket. So basically, it's created, right? But those dollars, they don't support the ecosystem.
What are we seeing now for 2 or 3 months straight? More and more coins are coming to the market, and we are having a real downfall in the price. There is nothing that supports the coin on itself,
except the mystery bot. We're not sure what that is. And I think it's absolutely inevitable that the price of the token is going to go down over time until there's enough adoption and money coming in from clients to. So like Helium does it, if I'm not mistaken, they have a double effect, right? So all the customers have to buy the HNT off the open market, so that's driving the price up through demand, and then a portion of data credits burnt equates to some Helium like token getting burnt as well. So it's decreasing max supply, which should increase price as well. So it's like two mechanisms. And again, until we know the sort of ins and outs of how Hivemapper works, we don't really know what's going to happen. But there's always going to be a period of time until the demand's there. There's nothing that's going to support the token price, really.
Yeah.
So it's kind of
we need people to get motivated to actually start mapping. If you look at the number of cameras that have been sold since April last year, so actually everything that's been sold post pre-sale, it's around 1,500 cameras in 16 months, while they sold 5,500 in like 2 months of pre-sale. It says a lot of what kind of people are you actually onboarding. So basically, the people who had a pre-sale, they hoped for high gains. They got some other news eventually, and when people actually start showing the earnings, the number of cameras being sold declined really fast. So it says that it's actually not worth doing it
But we're still getting, like, again, I've spoke about this 2 weeks ago. If you look at the stats, the amount of kilometers mapped are very impressive. We're still getting kilometers mapped coming in. And from a personal perspective, I still deem this to be pretty damn early in the process. And I think that we're on that natural kind of, I'm hoping we're on the cusp between just printing tokens and no money coming into the system to transition towards money coming to the system through client demand. And the bursts, I think, is a great sign that customers are actually starting to pay some money. So I'm not super concerned about the token price going down, because I thought it would until the end of this year, at least maybe in like the start, mid of next year. But what we do need to know is how customers buying the mapping data equates to the token price going up. As Meije said a million times, we need the information on the tokenomics, which is.
But then again, don't forget how many people that got burned in a helium process came to this project hoping that they are now like really, really, really early, and they come to the discovery that's not the case.
They don't know that though. Like, if you, I agree with Ariel when he's saying we don't want to pump and dump, blah, blah, blah. And you need to look in the long term. If you look in like a 10, 15 year time horizon, obviously this is still super early, and there's complete potential for the token price in the next 5 years to do 10, 20, 50, 100, 200x. And then everyone who's complaining now will stop complaining. No one knows is what I'm saying. And it's like,
more or less, Leo, because we've had that exact effect with helium, where no one was complaining about the token price because it was going up, up, 1 million hotspots. Everyone thought that this was booming business and helium was going to be this kind of multi-million hotspot network, where there are going to be hundreds of thousands of customers using the network. And then in the end, when the token price started going down, hotspots started going offline. So I agree in the sense that, okay, the pump and dump doesn't make sense. I mean, it's good to get some early kind of fast moving traction, but Ariel mentioned, yeah, okay, that's not the playbook that we want to follow, but it is the playbook that they are following more or less, not the pump and dump, but in terms of tokenomics as well. As you mentioned, Helium has the same type of tokenomics relatively as Hivemapper, in the sense that tokens are burned, right? And Helium doesn't yet, as far as I know, acquire much, if any, tokens from the market, because they have the Helium security tokens. So that's also why the Helium token is so low compared to what it was. And we all don't want that same cycle to happen again. But yeah, but looks pretty similar to what Helium is doing.
But we have June analytics dashboards, right? And I know that we don't like. You can see
we don't anymore.
In Helium, but we don't at the moment. Yeah, it's been offline.
Even when we did, when some questions were asked on those statistics, the first answer of Ariel was always, "Ah, well, those numbers are not correct." But then again, when he wanted to profile like giving people information, then it was correct. So playing a strange game when it comes to number. I mean, I'm still asking why I'm not able to see the exact calculation afterwards every week. What's the secret in that? You have a couple of parameters, put in a formula that gives a number of tokens that are being sent through the blockchain to my account. Those numbers are clear. Put them on the screen. What are you hiding? I'm really sorry. That makes me really pissed off, because we asked that so many times. Give us something to analyze our own performance or the area where we are doing that. It's now at the point where I really think there is a clear reason why they are not disclosing that. I'm not yet to know why, but there is a reason why they don't want to disclose that.
Yeah, I'm of the mindset that with all of these kind of crypto projects, particularly where the project itself is saying, come and join it because you're a part of this, you own it, you have ownership. I always think that every aspect of it should be completely transparent and open. And so I agree with you in that should be published. To play devil's advocate, maybe it's gaming, maybe they don't want to kind of give people insights on how it's all calculated because that's going to facilitate gaming. I'm not sure. I'd love to see it published as well. Maybe there's a reason we don't know. Just before I forget as well, going back one step to what we were talking about a second ago, with like comparing the crash of Helium and kind of the trajectory of Hivemapper right now. The thing that I would hammer home is that the Helium crash, in my opinion, happened because of general market as well, but primarily because they weren't generating any revenue at all and the data credits were too cheap and they weren't selling enough of them. What I'm hoping is that Hivemapper will sell more, will bring in enough fiat to support the token price and offset the amount that they're printing. That's for me the key difference between Hivemapper and Helium. I think that they could have a lot more luck in actually selling the products and service that they're producing. So a couple of different points there. So jump in wherever you want to.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the general question here. Is look, they have, if you do even the calculation right now regarding the amount of tokens, they have, last time I checked, somewhere around $26 million worth of tokens that they can spend right within the company at the current price. Like if you were to calculate, okay, how many tokens can they burn of that stash before their total amount of token goes to zero and they have to buy it, that's going to take quite a bit of time. Look, as soon as the tokenomics is clear in terms of how does the fiat come back into the system, like GeoNet is doing, for example, then most of these issues are kind of resolved in terms of, okay, when do we find the balance? If they don't put any buy pressure on the token, then it's going to be Helium all over again, because they have $26 million or something worth of tokens. And if news comes out that they have a new customer or whatnot, the token will go up, they will have to burn less. So in the end, they might have enough tokens that they can burn for 10 years. I mean, it's a fantastic business model, right? Don't get me wrong. If you don't have to spend a single dollar on your mappers and everything is done in virtual tokens, it's a fantastic business model. I get it, but it's not sustainable. So
come on, so basically you are giving mappers air tokens, and it's all based on speculation that somebody is going to buy those tokens to burn for data credits, basically. But why should a client buy on the open market if they can buy from Hivemapper stash? So
well, it's a little bit different than Helium. With Hivemapper, it's different, right? With Helium, you can buy HNT from the market, you can burn it to data credits, and those you can use on your console, right, or whatever. With Hivemapper, that's not really the case because it's more of a business to business type of product, and if it's B2B, you're most likely ending up on people doing deals in fiat. So there won't be, I don't expect anytime soon customers interested in the data to acquire honey in order to then burn it. I don't even know if that mechanism is readily available to burn it to data credits. I don't think it is. So I think at least with Hivemapper, most of the data credits are going to come from direct business sales from Hivemapper to the end customer.
I disagree that the B2B factor makes any difference at all, because there can still be a mechanism. Business gives business, or the business gives Hivemapper the dollars, and those are somehow transferred into data credits and an equivalent amount of honeys bought off the open market. It's perfectly feasible that happens. And until the tokenomics come out, I guess we won't really know that. The other thing I'd say is like, we shouldn't forget that it's in Hivemapper and their employee and their investors' best interest for the token price to go up, because 20% to investors, 20% to employees, 15% to Hivemapper. If the value of the token goes to zero, they're left also with zero. So it's in their best interest to make sure.
Not entirely true. If they have some kick-ass technology and an infrastructure, they can sell the whole thing for, like, let's say 50 million, and they make a killing of a profit, 100% on your money. That's that's also a way to do it, right?
Call me naive. I don't think they would do that / get away with it, but maybe I'm just being naive.
I say it as a possibility.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. This week we've had a new software update. That's app version 6.8.12. So for those listening that haven't checked their updates recently, have a look. There's probably an update there. And the new firmware released 3.3.18. So new app and a new firmware update. These updates were done to fix a couple of issues. So they say you fix app crashes. So some people have noticed that that their Hivemapper app crashes, mostly on Samsung devices, and some fixes for the 000 issue. So basically, if you're mapping and everything is zero, that was a previous bug that has been with us for a couple of weeks. So this should help with that. Silent firmware update. So last week, as we've discussed, one of the biggest issues we've had was that the dashcam was not updating its firmware. So you could basically leave it open and it just wouldn't update. So we've seen many drivers that had 3, 4, 5 versions behind with the firmware update on their dashcam. So now they are updated silently, and we still have to see what the effect is, but hopefully it should fix a lot of these update issues. Then the last one is, this one's pretty interesting, that I think it's worth discussing.
A little bit.
Yes,
a little bit of advice for this version of the app, at least for the iOS. What you can expect to see is that everything is very slow if you do just an update of your app. I see a slow stream from the camera to the app, and from the app to the cloud, to say so. Well, the first part you can help it by like really doing a fresh install of your app. That solves the issue of slow transfer from the camera to the app. The Wi-Fi upload is really slow. Many people mention that, but when you switch to cellular, if you have that possibility, everything goes smoothly. So yeah, it's up to you then to decide. But anyway, fresh install of the app helps a lot. Yeah.
So that was one of the biggest complaints in this version, that from the dashcam to the phone were slow, and then to Hivemapper as well. But if anyone has any issues that they can't resolve, just hop onto the Discord bug channel and report your issues there, and they'll have a look at it.
What I've seen as well, I don't know whether this is common or not. I'm on iOS, iPhone 13. With this new update, I now can't connect the wallet. So I press connect wallet, nothing happens. I press it again, and then I press link Phantom account. Instead of opening up Phantom, it then takes me to the Phantom webpage to download the app, which is already downloaded. And so I'm sort of seeing that loop at the moment.
Yeah, I've seen it as well. The only solution I had was to uninstall Phantom and Hivemapper, both, and then just do that a couple of times. Then eventually it should work. But that's an iOS specific issue. I've encountered that as well.
Never encountered that issue unless Phantom fucked up something in their new version, but then they were always able to fix it really quickly.
But this is an edge case. This is one of those issues that doesn't happen to everyone, but there are some people that that have that issue.
What strikes me every time they do an update is it's actually the fact that some really basic scenario seem not to be tested, like the slow Wi-Fi in this case. When you do just an update, everything goes slow. That's not an edge case that should pop up, and every single update we have some kind of basic feature being broken to some extent, which, I mean, basic testing should resolve that. So I'm not sure if they have an automatic testing in place. I think it's all being done manually.
Well, there is a testing group, right? But they mentioned in the testing group that they had less than a day to test a new version before it was out. I think it's a couple of engineering choice. I think firstly they should only do updates Monday or Tuesday at the maximum, because if there are issues, then they have time to fix it. And tomorrow it's already Friday. If they don't fix it by then, people will have to wait until next week. Then they should have a longer testing period, and they should probably do a soft rollout to first a couple of dash cams and actually look at the logs, how everything is going. It's probably a bit of a hasty engineering decision that's leading to these sorts of issues, which in the end is impacting the experience of mappers, right? Especially those that have a fleet. They know that if it doesn't work, they just whatever, and then less kilometers get mapped.
Nice. Do you want some breaking news?
Breaking news.
Oh.
I am actually a fleet owner since yesterday.
Nice.
A colleague of mine is driving a ton of kilometers and he said, "Put that thing in my car. I don't care."
Oh well.
Actually, once a week when he's at the office, he pops the camera off and I download everything, and that's it.
Can it store that much data on it, like a week's worth?
Yeah, it can store about 600 miles, which is about like 800 to 1,000 kilometers, more or less.
He's making about 500 to 700 every week.
Yeah, so that should be fine. It should be fine. Which segue into our next point.
Exactly, that one.
Segue into our next point. This is a very interesting one, and this is the last feature on the update, which is that they are moving the machine learning and AI stuff to the edge. And that basically means that instead of the pictures are uploaded to Hivemapper and Hivemapper does all the AI processing on their servers, basically they are moving that onto the dashcam, well, mostly to kind of improve efficiency, to not have to transfer all of that data, but also to preserve Hivemapper's wallet, because all of this type of processing in the cloud and storage and transfer is very, very, very expensive, especially if your map continues to grow and you don't have the infrastructure yourself like Google has, right? They have their own infrastructure. They can basically run it. So what does that mean, that AI is going onto the edge? So there's a couple of points that are relevant to discuss. Firstly is, okay, can the dashcam handle it? So from what the engineers at Hivemapper have said, that they are now at 30 to 40% CPU usage, but there's a catch, right? So the catch is GNSS performance, right? So we know that Hivemapper's had some issues with digital noise that is injected into the GPS module or antenna, or both. And they had to kind of thread a thin line of, can they take out of the CPU to do the AI processing? By the way, the CM4, so that's the Raspberry Pi compute module 4 that they use, it's actually not made for AI, so it doesn't have any neural cores in there, so it's just general purpose CPU. It's not really designed for it. So if they will increase the CPU level, the question is, to which degree will that impact the GPS performance, right? We will have to see this over the next coming weeks, how that will be. We've had some people already say that their GPS performance has been degraded since this last version, including you, Mladen, and I've seen some other people as well, but it's pretty early, so let's just wait a week and see how it goes.
It's the front. It's only on the front, so I'm not sure if it has to do with the moving model or something else. It's quite strange.
Yeah, so we will have to see how this gets impacted. So then the second very interesting point that we've discussed also on Discord briefly is, okay, the compute module inside of the dashcam, it's pretty resilient in terms of its components, right? So it can run up to 80 to 90 degrees Celsius. It can run up to, I think it's 70 or 80 degrees Celsius below zero. But here's the interesting point, which I think comes back to something that we've emphasized with Hivemapper since about a year ago, which they haven't done, and they are kind of, I'm absolutely sure that they are kind of regretting it, and that's how easy it is to repair the dashcam. So right now, for those that have had a broken dashcam, you know that you have to send it back. Now, Hivemapper has been complaining more and more kind of about this process, because if you're outside of the United States and you have to send it back, just the shipping costs is right now probably as much or sometimes more than the price of the dashcam. So for certain countries, especially kind of Brazil and South America and Africa, it costs you about $200, sometimes more, for shipping back and forth, which is the price of the dashcam.
Yeah, lucky in the Netherlands, it's 20-25 euro to send.
Yeah,
but then it takes a month.
Yes, of course, but that's not with FedEx. And that's another problem that we should probably also discuss later is, okay, if you are without your dashcam for a month or a month and a half and you're not able to map, like, you should probably be compensated for that, which you're not. But anyway, that's a different topic.
Yeah.
The dashcams are not easy to repair right now, right? For those that have a dashcam, there's no screws. You cannot unscrew it. It's a little bit like an iPhone. It's glued together. But here comes the interesting point. With AI moving onto the dashcam, the most kind of fragile component inside of the dashcam is the eMMC chip, which is the data storage chip in there. Now, data storage, for those that know and have had a Helium hotspot as well for a while, if there's a lot of reads and writes to your SD card, for example, on a hotspot, after a couple of months, depending on how much your read and write, especially sequential write and read, and also random, which are the biggest issue, they can and will degrade the performance of your SD card or of your storage chip. Now, in kind of sequential order, the SD card, which is NAND flash, if I'm not mistaken, is the most fragile one. And then you have eMMC, then you have then you have hard drives, and then you have SSDs in terms of longevity. Now, in this compute module, we have a eMMC, that's a 32 gig eMMC storage chip. Now, these storage chips, they aren't made for constant read and writes of a lot of data, right? So if you go actually into manufacturer specifications, they recommend to have them write, for example, 300-400 megabytes a day, which is usually for kind of light operating system operations. Now, we've done some simulations here, and that if you are, for example, a truck driver that does about 20 gigabytes per day, which is about 400 to 500 miles of storage every single day, 260 days a year. You end up just for writing images from your lens right to your storage, you end up with about 5 to 6 terabytes of data written to your eMMC chip every year. Now, there is an interesting blog post which we'll post in this episode as well, in which you can calculate how much data you can write to one of these storage chips before it reaches the end of its life cycle. The average amount is around 12 to 15 terabytes of data that you can write on these chips. If they're random writes, it's less. And so let's say 10 to 20 plus minus 5 terabytes. This would mean that if you store all of the data on your storage chip, that the average dash cam would die if you're a truck driver within 2.5 to 3 years right now. But if AI is moved on to the edge, that means that all of the images will run through a AI engine, right, which will extract data from it, which will do a bunch of extra read and writes from this imagery. It's most likely that this amount will increase to somewhere around 10 terabytes per year of writes to this chip. Now, the question that probably and hopefully Hivemapper can do some testing around is, okay, if these chips are rated at, say, 10 to 12 terabytes of writes, and an average trucker will reach that end of life cycle number of writes within a year, right? If your camera breaks, and most likely they will, if the storage chip wears out, even with the fancy technology in which they can don't store in defect sectors and things like that, your chip will still die. So firstly, what is Hivemapper's strategy, right? So there's always a consequence. Okay, you do more processing, your compute module will last less in terms of the life cycle. And what will Hivemapper do in terms of repairability of the dashcam? So, for example, if it would have been very easy to repair the component, then Hivemapper could send out these components, the compute module, right, which is a pretty small module. I actually have it somewhere here. Hold on, let me just show this.
While Maya's finding that, just to summarize for the less technical amongst us, AI to dashcam equals dashcam dies quicker is what I've taken from that.
Yes,
more quicker than usual.
More quicker than usual. Okay.
So this is the eMMC. The storage chip is this one up here, this little guy. So this the CPU, and so the most fragile part of this entire board is actually the storage chip. So this is not designed to have constant read and writes, and mapping from Hivemapper itself is already a very heavy duty, and I'm pretty sure that there are already compute modules that have died on use. So if your dashcam dies, right, it can be a couple of factors, but there will always be some kind of issue, or some will last longer than others. So I'm sure that this is an issue in terms of dashcams dying, but it will become a increasing issue. And with the repairability of the dashcam, what is Hivemapper's plan? Because people aren't going to buy a new dashcam every year or two, right? A dashcam should last 3, 4, 5 years, because
I would not mind buying a new dashcam, or at least sending it back and getting another at a discount if that can be repaired by them and put again on the market.
That is a valid point. That's a valid point. So if you send it back, and then they will repair it, but I think that's doable. I don't really like that idea, because I've done that a few times, sending dashcam back, and it takes a month, And for those that run these as an investment, having a dash cam kind of stuck with Hivemapper for a month and in customs and stuff like that is a lot of money that you lose. So I'm not a big fan of it. It's possible,
that actually changed. Like a month or two ago, I had talked with quite some people about. They asked me how do you do that? Do you have some people there to speed up the process? So basically, I had a talk away then with them, and what they are doing right now, when you send your camera, first they look, okay, is your camera really dead? They can assert that, and they know. Then they give you a FedEx how you call that sticker, and once you prove that you send the camera back, they send you immediately a new one.
Well, no, maybe to you, but when I've done it, and
quite some people.
I mean, last week I've had the same thing with 2 dash cams which are stuck in Brazil, and I've sent pictures. They are on their way, and it's the second time that I've sent 2 dash cams from Brazil, and that didn't happen in my case. They went there, then they were at Hivemapper, and then a week or 2 later they were sent. Which that process isn't even the worst process. The worst process is actually customs. So they've been stuck in customs for 3 to 4 weeks, which was in Brazil, which of course isn't Hivemapper's fault, but it's still time that you're wasting. And I don't, I kind of want answers. Okay, what is the plan with this? Because if they actually move the AI onto the dash cam, increasingly there will be more wear and tear on your storage chip, which will mean more sending back and forth, which will cost money to Hivemapper. It will cost money. They have to buy these CM4s, which are not easy to get at all. So the question is, what is their plan? If they make a dash cam that's more repairable, that would be fantastic. Then they could just, instead of having to send the entire dash cam back, they could just send out one of these in the mail, pre-flashed. You plug it in, because this has it's kind of easy to plug connectors. There's no soldering or stuff involved, so you could just plug it in, and you're kind of good to go. But my question is okay, what is the plan? Because
I don't have any for right now. As you see, they simply exchange the unit, and that's it. I think there is no plan for this iteration of camera. So for the HDC or the HDC-S, I think they're taking the easiest process. Just exchange it, and
okay. And if your camera dies in 2 years and you're no longer in warranty, what happens then?
Nothing. You're screwed.
Buy a new one.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, but that's not a good thing, right?
unless you bought it in Europe, and there is a life expectancy that it needs to meet, which should be around 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, sure. Like, I'm not saying that, okay, don't buy a new one, but I don't think it's very fair, right? I mean, many of us have spent $30,000 on these things, and if they break in 2 years and the warranty is gone, I am not going to accept them simply saying, yeah, well, warranty is gone. Yeah, well, you put software on the dash cam which broke it sooner. It's your own problem. Fix it.
Yeah, but did you read the terms of services? We do not promise anything. We don't owe you anything. So it's a work.
Though, if in 2 years all of our dash cams break as like fleet owners with like, sort of 30, 40, 50 plus dash cams, we'll probably have to buy new ones. I'm sure they'll give us decent rates considering the initial rates we paid. I think that they'll take it. I don't think they have a master plan like Mladen says, but I think they're smart enough to take it like step by step and do the right thing when they need to.
Let's be honest. I hope we will have this conversation 2 years after the project actually starts. So the big question is, are we going to get to those 2 years to have this conversation, and by that time are the tokenomics going to be clear? So we have 2 years for a lot of answers to get our answers.
Yeah,
100% yes, in my opinion. I have full faith.
All right. But anyway, I still think it's an important point to mention, and especially buying a dash cam, just consider that it's probably going to die on you a bit quicker than expected. All right, guys. So for the last couple of news points for this week's episode, I see Mladen is already ready to go to bed. So Hivemapper put out a blog post announcing the 5 million kilometers of unique kilometers mapped. So great news. Great news. A little bit behind schedule, but still great news.
A little bit?
Yeah. Well, okay, that's my next point.
Okay, good.
So we are right now, Thursday, 14th of September, we are at 53.49 million kilometers mapped. That is a 1.4 million kilometers increase from last week.
Wow.
Then that we are at right now, we are at 5.034 million kilometers or unique kilometers. So 5,039,000. That is a meager increase of 81,000 kilometers from last week. And if I remember correctly, from last week to the week before, we had an increase of 96 unique kilometers.
It was more than that. It was above 100K, right?
I'm not 100% sure. We have to go back, but I have the idea it was a bit less. But anyway, it's 81,000 kilometers of unique kilometers going into this competition. What was the name again? Sorry guys, I forgot.
Open
road competition. We would hit 6 million kilometers at this rate in 12 weeks. So that's let's say 2.5 months. So we'll be there in somewhere in December. We'll reach. Did
you take into account the fact that the number of unmapped roads are diminishing?
Yes, of course. So I think, as we've discussed as well, there's kind of a natural progression that if there are not enough cameras sold, people will eventually drive the same roads, and then the amount of unique kilometers will go down over time, unless fresh blood gets added to the pool.
Can I a little bit step out on that point? We see every week quite some regions are being added, which is good.
25 this week.
Yeah, it happens almost every week right now that regions are being added, which is nice. But at the same time, it's becoming more and more of a problem. The problem of that is we are adding regions and actually diluting the weight of all the regions, because you have, at the end of the day, 100% that needs to be divided by more and more regions. So it's the piece of the pie is getting lower and lower. So what I see from the numbers is actually that the weight of the region is decreasing more faster than the global pot is actually increasing. So basically, that's one of the big reasons why people experience every week less and less and less rewards, even when they do the same thing. So basically, unless the number of mappers increase at the same pace as the
unique kilometers as well, right? Also, yeah. The unique kilometers, because that kind of dictates the progress, right?
No, not per se. as far as the progress is being calculated based on the coverage, the resilience and activity.
Okay, but if no longer new roads are being mapped,
Yeah.
what is the impact that you mentioned that the rewards are going down? So
Coverage is affected on that case, right?
Yeah.
yes, so the coverage doesn't increase. But if your coverage doesn't increase, your progress also should stay the same, right?
Yeah, that's correct. That's what we've seen in
Right.
the last week numbers, because they now decreased due to MIP 6. They decreased the rowing averages. So those are now based on shorter days.
Okay, so what that means then in the end, that if more mappers come on board, but the global progress doesn't increase fast enough, the rewards will be, so the total amount of honey will be the same.
Yeah.
But it will be divided across
More
mappers.
Yeah.
So in the end of the day, what we need basically is we need more mappers mapping unique roads in these regions in order to get the global.
I basically saw in 3 months' time for the region Amsterdam that I'm speaking. I know the numbers. They were like going from 0.11% to 0.07, which is a decrease of like 40-50%. No, sorry, 40%. I don't see that the number of mappers increase by 40%.
All right.
What I love from GeoNet is how they do it. The first person in the hex gets paid the most, and the next person in that hex gets like a bit less. The next person gets a bit less, and once you've got enough in that hex, the next person gets nothing. I think, if I understood correctly, I'd love to see that from other DPM projects, including Hivemapper. Like priority goes.
That's happening here as well due to the freshness, right?
Yeah, but let's say I bought a camera a year ago and I've been mapping consistently every week for a year, and someone comes in with a new camera and maps like my road before I do, he's going to get paid more than I would for that road. What I'm saying, I'd love to see the person who's had the skin in the game for like a year to be given preferential treatment, maybe an unpopular kind of approach.
Well, that should be in the reputation. It's the same reason that doesn't make sense at all, that if someone with a shitty dashcam mount maps a road before you, they get more than you do, but the quality of the imagery is not good.
I mean, the amount of time I spend looking at the lens of the camera, like, you know, trying to troubleshoot the cameras, my reputation score is probably absolutely abysmal because I'm just trying to check out what's been wrong with the camera. So I think I've probably got a terrible reputation.
To be honest, I don't think a reputation is doing anything, but
yeah, I don't think so either. Not right now.
Cool.
All right.
anything
else for today, or should we wrap it up there?
I don't know. I'm curious.
Yeah, no, I don't know either. I think Hivemapper, we need some answers. We need some answers on tokenomics. We need some answers on this stuff with AI and what happens if your dashcam breaks. And then and legality. We need some answers on those points as well.
Well, look, let's get a concise bullet point list of our most pressing questions. We can put it to them, not in a public forum in front of everyone in Discord, and let's see what they come back with.
They will not come back to you.
We'll see.
According to experience of the guy here, I don't think they're going to give any answers on that, because we have no signed contract with them for no disclosure.
No, but look, guys, it's fine. Also, for those listening, I know it might sound kind of repetitive that we're talking about these points, but kind of the reason that we're discussing is in this public setting is also to not let these topics onto the background, right? Because it's very easy to oversee to overlook this type of stuff when you're making a lot of honey. So it's important that these things stay relevant and that we get answers to them as a community. And if those things are answered, then then we can move on. I think we have a lot of cameras and a lot of time and a lot of effort invested here, but also the rest of the community in terms of troubleshooting. Right, it's not just set and forget. There's a lot of time involved. So I think it makes sense to also consider it as a time investment and to expect good answers in return beyond saying this is not our playbook. We're going to try something else. Okay, fine, but then be clear on what that playbook actually is and what you're doing in order to solve these issues. So, all right.
Totally agree with that. Just to finish on a slight positive as well, which I think would be a nice thing. I still think, like, obviously we're focusing on things that don't get discussed necessarily on Discord. Some of them are more on the negative side. I think it's also like relevant to bring the positive side. We were saying a second ago, look, we've only got 81,000 unique kilometers mapped this week, particularly in a week which has had loads of like issues with the dashcam. I still think that's pretty phenomenal. 81,000 unique kilometers mapped in 1 week. When you like look at the numbers and say it, maybe it isn't quite reaching the 6 million in time, but it's still a great effort. Everyone sort of mapping out there, awesome job. And yeah, I think the project still definitely got a bright future as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and I think also the reason why we're here as well is that we do really care of this project. I think out of a lot of the deep in projects, it sits at the top in terms of its potential. I think Helium in its own way, Hivemapper, Geonet, and a couple of others, they really do have a good angle that will work. And there is a lot of like for example, Mapillary, right, which was sold to Facebook, if I'm not mistaken. Like they were acquired for a reason, and Hivemapper is doing better than all of those. So yeah, I think there's definitely reasons to be optimistic, but we need to build on a solid foundation for sure.
Okay. Cool.
Not Ariel. You were going to say something.
That we have 1 minute left.
All right.
Let's wrap up. Let's leave it there.
Yeah, let's leave it there. All right, guys. Thanks everyone for listening again, and see y'all next week.
Yeah.
Until next week.
Okay.
All right.
Please
Bye bye.